Hello, beautiful.
Hi.
Hello, divers. Welcome to another episode. Welcome to Dive in Wonder.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me.
Thank you
I'm like,
so much
where
for
do I
being here.
look? Do I?
You can look at me.
Okay.
You can look at me. I feel like we're only looking at the cameras to make weird jokes. That was the
Okay.
vibe. But you can speak to camera the whole time if you
I'm
want.
gonna be making all the jokes.
Okay.
I'm the funniest person ever.
I know. That's why you're here, actually. This whole podcast is going to be on comedy.
A comedy.
Okay? It's going to be an improv comedy sketch.
Completely.
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Epic. Do you look at your camera when you're doing interviews?
Usually not. I feel like usually I try to just like
Look at the other
person.
Yeah,
and
like
then-
you're having a talk.
Yeah. So okay.
You can do
But
whatever
it
you
feels so
want.
different,
This
like
is a safe space.
being interviewed.
I know you're in the spot you put people in.
But thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you for being here. Would you please give us a brief introduction of Cynthia for the divers who don't know you?
Oh my god. Hi everyone. I'm Cynthia Taylu, and I feel like I would like to describe myself probably as a creative. I think like I have so many different like interests.
Yeah.
I feel like back in the day it always used to be like, oh, I'm Cynthia model, but then now I'm like, no, like I'm Cynthia who still does modeling, but then acting is like a big part, and writing and creating. So
When did you start redefining that? Like, when did you start going in like out of like just the identity of modeling, or were you always dabbing but like in the back?
Yeah, I think that like I always was doing like different things, especially like when I was in high school. Like I was in like the drama club and I was in like debating. So I feel like at heart I've always had all these different interests, but then I guess when something really like picks up for you and then you start, you know, making a living from it, that obviously people kind of know you for that like one thing, compared to like friends who've known me since like, you know, high school, university, know that I've always been interested in like all these other things. It's just more that I guess modeling became like my livelihood.
The thing.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like you had to kind of like focus on one thing publicly so people wouldn't be confused? Or was it more just organically you were only posting that type of content and then you decided to lean more into like the acting side and everything publicly later? Because you were doing drama since yours.
Well, I feel like it would be good to get your take on this, because I feel like, say something like modeling, before I got into it, I was like really interested in it. I think it's kind of easier to like show people that you want to do modeling in terms of like representing it. Like, so when I was in university, I was like studying journalism and PR, and on the side I would organize like shoots and stuff with my friends, and one of my best friends, she would like style the shoot and whatnot, and I'd reach out to photographers. And so then back then on Instagram I was always like posting photos and whatnot. But when it comes to acting, I think that like I would do like theatre performances when I was at university, but I think
As well, you were in drama. Okay.
but I find it hard sometimes in terms of like if you haven't yet booked, you know, say that big show or like that movie or things like that, that for the most part I feel like I don't really like share, say like my self-tapes.
You don't want to
and
share
whatnot,
that,
because there's this aspect of, I don't know, like I feel like when people in class like watch you, and they obviously there's like context to it compared to like
That's gone. You
social
screaming,
media.
why are you cheating on me on your story?
Compared to like
What the
socials
fuck?
where it's like there's literally so many people posting that I feel like people don't really, or maybe I'm just looking at it in a really like one-dimensional way, but people don't really have like the space to be able to like appreciate or digest it. And sometimes it's kind of like better to just wait to do the thing to then show it. I don't know, can you relate?
I get what you mean. I do and I don't, in a sense of like I had that approach, but I had it more towards modeling. So I did the opposite, because I started acting much earlier before I started modeling.
Okay.
And I was told in Paris and by a lot of people that no one wanted to, no director wanted to work with models acting. So when I start,
I've heard that as well.
yeah, and especially older people in Paris were very clear about, if you're gonna model, hide it.
That's so
Because it
interesting.
takes they will not take you seriously.
Why
And
do you think that is?
well, his argument at the time, again, I really want to go back to the age thing, because I think this has changed, and also it was like very old mindset of women can only do one thing, right? And
Totally.
it's the thing,
only
you like
do
choose a line.
Yeah.
And also, if you're gonna do that, his comment was kind of like, you're gonna only get casted as the bimbo wife, on like the side bimbo wife, like the new girl in a weird movie, and you're gonna be, and he made a comment like that, and now I find it crazy, and I've like worked on it a lot, but at the time, because it affirmed all my insecurities about modeling, because I had a lot of fears with modeling, because I felt like my family was gonna judge it, and I either was like smarter, because in Colombia it's really, really badly seen. So in Paris it was different, but I think because of that, I kind of was, even it took me like a year and a half, like even when I arrived here, and after maybe like 7 months with Chic and stuff, and they would post stuff, and my ex would mention it in like groups or something, and I would be like, don't tell people I do that, don't tell. And then I realized that it was like a crazy limiting belief that in every area of life you think you're more digestible for people in one way, and I felt like it was going to be a definition, like people were going to think I was dumb if I introduced myself as a model.
Yeah.
Just random fears and like old mindsets, and comes from the fact that there's a lot of like corruption in the entertainment industry in Latin America. So a lot of people in fashion, it's improved now, but in the past you would have the vision of girls working modeling and this type of jobs as in like, what did you have to do to get there?
Yeah.
And it was, because there's really dodgy casting directors, and there's like a lot of
Yeah.
back to that it was not even my situation, but I was carrying that for a long time. And then
Oh my god, 100%.
and then honestly, I think like a lot of fears and a lot of weird beliefs, it was taken away by seeing amazing models go into acting.
Yeah.
I think one of my friends that I met through modeling first was Sammy Alsop. Do you know her? She's an amazing.
Oh, wait, maybe. I'm so bad with names.
Yeah.
Just then you showed me someone.
Yeah.
I was like,
You're like, I don't know who that is. And,
and
you're
then
like, oh, she's my bestie.
Wait, I'm friends with her.
I saw her this morning.
It's more like if you like. I feel like when you're in primary school, everyone like knows everyone's like full name.
Yeah.
You'll be like Cynthia Taylu, blah and blah. Like I still remember like people's full names. So then I feel like when you become an adult,
because they're reading them in the school every day.
You just kind of just say like the first name, and then it's like there could be so many different people that.
Or people call them like everyone calls like Olivia Yemi.
Oh,
and I keep on going Olivia because for me she's Liv.
Actually, wait, that happened once. You like were referring to her, and I was like, I don't know who that is.
I don't know, and I'm like,
and you were like,
yes, you do.
Yeah, you do. Anyways.
What do you mean? We went with her last night.
Yeah, I was like, and then you were like, Yummy. I was like, oh, Yummy. Why didn't you just?
So
say
now we
that?
know. Yeah, why don't you just tell me her Instagram name? Because that's the name I know.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so Sammy, she's an amazing model and actor.
I think. Was she in like a thing recently, just like kind of like 60s, 50s?
Horror.
Ladies in Black.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that 60s?
I can't remember. It seemed like a
60s,
time
70s,
period.
It was a time period, yeah.
Okay, because I met her, I think, maybe 3 years ago at a dinner. And
Okay.
we like sat next to each other, and she was super lovely. And then
She's the
we
sweetest
followed
human.
each other on Instagram. And then I remember also seeing her doing acting, and I can relate when I see other models like getting into it and kind of like showing like what they're doing.
Yeah.
That I go, oh, that's really exciting and stuff, because I feel like there's not a lot of people.
No, you need to be, it's the thing, you need to be given permission. And it's crazy. Like, I'm not saying you need to, as is the right thing, but I feel we feel that the need, and we feel that we need to be given permission. And it takes one person around you to do it. And I think it was one of them in one of Les's masterclass who asked, is it okay to post? I know, I need to pick your brain on it. We love you, Les. we could do a whole podcast on Les cult, but it's not gonna be this one. But yeah, so it was during a class, someone asked that, and I had never posted a self-tape before. And he spoke about it and about which ones to do.
Say?
Do it if you're happy about it.
Because they always have that thing, because in this particular like coach.
Les is an acting coach. Again, context. Les is an amazing Australian acting coach that we have both studied with.
But he only really gets you to do like 1-2 take, and when I did the like class thing, like the, what is it called?
The master class?
Yeah. On the thing, it at the bottom it was like, this is not for sharing. And then he'd be like, I hope you can go back, look at this and cringe at it. And then but then this is me like screen recording it and be like, oh, I kind of look really good in that. And be like, slay.
Like, what do you mean when I'm recording class? And no, I think it's...
Yeah, I get nervous. Like, I remember once posting a self-tape that I was really happy about.
Yeah.
But when I was like in the room doing it, it was kind of like the atmosphere, and there's just like, I don't know how to put it into words, but there's just an energy, you know, of when you're in the moment and you know, you're feeling the other reader and like the people in the room and stuff. And obviously then people seeing that, but then again, like we watch great self-tapes, like what's her name, Rachel McAdams, her self-tape for The Notebook.
Does it annoy you to see self-tapes like
no,
that?
It doesn't annoy me. I think it's more I'm just like judging myself and being like, oh,
but do you have a different perception? This is actually really, really interesting for me to have your take on this, because when you finish a take, do you have a similar opinion on it when you finish, when they cut, as you do 12 hours later when you watch it? When are you the most objective to judge your work, according to like your experience now for what?
Oh, that's a hard question. When am I the most objective? I think that it's only been like recently that I've really like been like trying to be comfortable with like watching my tapes back, because I feel like a lot of the times when I'm watching it back that I used to have to just like get myself centered and not like be judgmental and not be like, oh my god, like cringing also. So if anything, I don't know, I feel like maybe now I've become like a little bit more objective to be like, oh no, I liked that, I liked how I said that, or I liked that action, and then sometimes kind of being like, I don't know if that was coming from a place of truth. But maybe I'm the most objective when like right after the take, because I feel like I'm still kind of like open to like trying something new,
interesting,
compared to like watching it afterwards, because I feel like you've got all this like information of like how you could have done it or feedback that I don't know if I'm seeing it in like a super objective way, or maybe it's more that I would need, say, like a week to then go back and
which we don't have 1 week, we have 48 hours.
So I don't know if I'm ever objective.
That's interesting. I feel like I'm the absolute opposite of what you just described, where we've made it kind of like a thing, and now it's like a process that we go through with Jasper, because I film pretty much everything with Jasper. And after way too much time of doing the same thing over and over again, which is hating it, when like I can, whatever opinion I have straight after, I've gotten really much better at it. But before, I used to be like, I want to throw up. Like, that was disgusting, that was terrible.
It's very vulnerable.
Yeah, but it's very interesting, because I've had a weird thing where like that would happen with takes that then I would hours later watch when I'm submitting them, and I'm like objectively really happy about them. really happy about those moments. And it's that trust as well, where I know we're gonna keep on retaking if we don't have the take, and I trust him enough now to like let myself be vulnerable and know that if we have it in 1 or 2 takes, I'm done. If we're on take number 7, which has happened and stuff, we don't have it. But I think at the beginning, when I feel like that awareness also needs to be like, I need to be outside as well, checking in. And I've heard a lot of actors and actors, like all the interviews, on the reason why some are really comfortable seeing themselves and the reason why some hate it. And I think like watching a lot of people, a lot of great acting in self-tapes at less over and over and over again, and watching actors that I really admire doing the takes and trying random shit in class because that's what you're doing, and failing miserably because something didn't work and whatever. And seeing people that I really admire and that work in projects that I really admire and stuff, seeing them be so detached, like, oh, that didn't work, why did I look there and whatever. I was like,
yeah,
oh, that's what they like,
rather than
they
like
truly don't get
putting
emotional.
a narrative onto like, yeah, your failures or things that you could do.
Because I think that's an issue that was kind of taught to us at some point, and it was that with art, like with writing and with acting and with a lot of things, with music. I heard an amazing interview with Rosalia was saying that she was like, you kind of are taught, or someone tells you that you just are born a good singer, and yeah, you get better at it, but she was like, you work at it a lot. And she was comparing her all, and she was like, some people of course are born and it's like faster, but I think that's also a really limiting belief that people have with acting. Like, yes, of course there's talent, there's a lot of technical work that goes into it. And that's the thing, I think that's what Les refers to when he says you should cringe when you look back at tapes. Because if you look back at takes that you did a year ago, you probably have so many moments that you're like, I would have done that, why did I do this? That beat was too long, that beat was too short. But I think that, again, permission. It was just seeing other people that I really admire and seeing their process and seeing them study their work. Because it's like, you think it's egocentric, but it's more egocentric for me personally to not want to be able to be like, I don't want to see it, because then I'm kind of attaching my value to how I just performed in one scene.
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like recently I've been trying to like look back on my tapes, and then like one of my friends said this, and she writes like notes to be like what worked, what didn't work, and I've been trying to like kind of do that, and then you can kind of like look back and make it. I don't know if I will ever be objective with my work, like because I feel like it's you, and you know what I mean. Like I don't think
And you'll always be your worst judge.
Yeah, if anything, I'll always be like, oh, I could have done that better, and I feel like it's. Yeah, like it's very rare for me to be like, oh, I did perfect.
And how did you feel on theater when you couldn't see yourself? Was it a bit more freeing? How did you start that?
I think, well, when I was in high school, I did like theater, and the high school that I went to, we had like an incredible drama teacher, and they had this program called Zen Zen Zo, which is like physical theater. So when I was like, I think I started that in like grade 10, and so that was kind of like...
How old are you in grade 10
15.
in Australia? Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, kind of started with that, and because I grew up in Queensland, we also had this thing called Creative Generation, where it was like, because I went to a public school, and so not all the public schools, but a lot of the public schools in Queensland would come together, and they would do this like live performance from like singing, dancing, acting.
That's sick.
Yeah, and I auditioned for acting, and they basically did this like 1 week program where it was like the most fun thing ever. It was like,
would you mix and do performance with other schools, or every school would have their performance and then they would showcase it?
So you would basically audition, and say you would audition for singing, and then you would audition for like acting, dancing. So it would be like all the kids from like different schools. So I think that I was like the only person from like my school, not
Yeah.
in a way of like I was the only person
representing my school because they were all not just astounded.
I will say that the previous year I had like auditioned for singing, and I remember one of my friends recording me, and I could just tell that she was like trying not to laugh. But I was literally that kid who was like,
I had the same with singing with No One. With Alicia Keys' No One.
Oh my gosh.
My mom has never looked more worried in her whole life. And like she's the most supportive person, but she could not hide it.
Oh my god.
And she just kept on going. She just kept on blaming it on the song.
That's so funny.
She was like, babe, but like Alicia Keys, like there's a lot of songs that you like. And I was fully like determined on no, but like
must be this one.
And I really thought it sounded great.
Oh. But it probably did sound great.
No, I did audition with it.
Yeah.
And they were just
It was not get a call back. I remember like
they were not ready for us yet.
Yeah, I can't remember like what if I had to like email them or send it through the teacher. I think I had to send it through a teacher, but I feel like I kept following up and like, hey, have you like heard anything? Like or like nothing. And then the following year I got in for acting, and it was like this 1 week program. And you know that movie, it's called like Fame, and it's like got all the kids in the school, like they go to like a performing arts school. And then like at lunchtime, like everyone like stands up on the desk and they start singing, and everyone's like
a High School Musical vibe.
Yeah, that was what the week was like. And
that's it.
I remember just being like, because I feel like at heart that like sometimes I can be like quite reserved, but when you're in that environment with like, you know, people that do drama, that there's just, it's like if I go into the room and I go, oh, I'm feeling really upset today, you know, like I'm just getting like, I'm feeling emotional, I'm feeling vulnerable, like people are so much more receptive, like every time we see each other.
Every time, that's the thing, the first time I met
how do you feel? And
I know.
Like, you know?
And it was a thing where I feel like I recognized it. The first time I met you, I feel like I remember like I saw you speaking with Jess and everything, and I felt a bit of like, she's a bit shy vibes. And then we like exchanged like 3 words. It was when you were moving back, you were about to drive back from Brisbane. And I was on the week where I was deciding to move to Sydney. I remember so well, we were in one of those like fashion parties outside.
And it was like InQ or something.
Yeah, and you just told me like, I'm scared to drive in Sydney and whatever in 3 seconds. You're like, hi, my name is Cynthia, and driving in Sydney is really intimidating. And then we went like, you can do it. You can drive back in Sydney. And then I was like, I love this woman. I want to spend the rest of the night with this woman.
So sounds like me.
Yeah.
But that was like a real worry back then.
You were really worried. No, but it was honest. It was like pure.
I literally remember talking to so many people about that, and it was like.
Sorry, you're saying I was not unique.
Like,
okay.
Well, no,
okay.
not that you weren't unique. Not that you weren't unique.
I thought you opened up because I allowed that space, but she said it to everyone in the party.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but I must have felt safe.
Truly
enough.
an actress.
But at that time, it was really plaguing me. I was like, how am I gonna drive?
I know, and then you fucking killed it.
Like
driving where? What do you mean? Take me to India.
Not sure about that. I don't know.
But you will, and we will get through it when you're in India.
I don't know if anyone can drive there, but
yeah, but I know what you mean when it comes to the space being around artists like that allows you to be in. It's a really weird energy. I feel like the same in Les and everything.
Yeah.
Where people are dropping masks because the rest of the time you're on people. Everyone's trying to make it seem like they have their life together.
So when I was, my whole point about bringing up my drama teacher and like doing like physical theater was I was deeply just inspired by her, not just to be like an artist, but just be like a real person. And
Yeah.
she just like, I'm not in touch with her now, I have no idea like where she is, but she just cared so much about like the kids that she was teaching. And we would do like these exercises where we'd be like walking around the room like really fast, and she would be like, if you're out there in the world, like give people your eye contact, like give people, you know,
Oh, wow.
be present, like don't just be like, oh, I'm feeling all right, like say how you actually, you know, feel. And so
And she would relate that to acting, or she would just give
she
you that
would, like,
advice?
she would like relate that to acting, but it was kind of, she just, the way that she would walk was with such power, and she just was so like, and she would talk to us kids like we were just people rather than like kids, you know, because a lot of the times obviously like adults talk to kids like kind of like talk down at them.
Yeah, and it changes everything because it like empowers you so much.
Like people being able to like turn up to drama class, and although we're all in like different groups, but people could just be really raw and honest and talk about like their family dynamics or things that they were experiencing.
Wow.
And so I guess that was kind of like my pull towards
towards drama.
Yeah, towards
How insane and beautiful is it that one teacher can have so much influence in you? I had a similar thing with my theater teacher in school, where I literally, I think 2 years ago, I sent him a message on Facebook because someone did a play of a Molière play that we did with him, and I was like, I just hope you know how much you impacted me. Because of allowing a space, because at that age as well, you're really vulnerable and you're really sensitive to how adults react about you and the space you're able to have and what they encourage and what they don't, because we're dealing with a lot of shame and it's teenage. So the moment something gets pulled up, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that. And someone telling you like, everything that you are is so fine, and it's actually what you need to be here. Yeah. It's very interesting because so did you do one of the ongoings after? This is going to become a Les podcast.
Yeah, I just finished the ongoing last Monday was my last one.
How was that?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was interesting because I think it's obviously just kind of like a continuation from his workshop, but in it, I feel like he kind of relaxes a little bit with the ongoings compared to the workshop. It's very like, comes in and he's like, you know, and everyone.
Yeah.
But I like had so many conversations about his class, so I feel like when he came in, I didn't really feel like intimidated. I kind of was just like, okay, you know, like.
Oh, because you felt like you were gonna feel intimidated?
Well, because people told me that he tries to make you feel intimidated.
It's so funny because like once you know him, you're like, I don't understand why I felt that way, but he does, because he's really good and he's hard to read.
At that point yet, because like I've only really exchanged a few sentences to him, but
okay.
But I do like his approach because it's just kind of, it's different, and I like how it feels just very like cut to the chase, you know?
I feel like, one of the things that Les worked on, that coming back to what you said with your teacher, that I feel like I was trained. So I did drama school, and in drama school I feel like they took me back a bit to, and it's very common that they do that, hopefully they're changing now, but very classical drama school tries to kind of like get you to become a white canvas and then paint a character on top of it. And it's a thing that then, and I've heard heaps of people speaking about this, about how then you actually have to unlearn that in drama school because you're really not interesting when you do that. And I think Les brought that back, and one of the things he pushes in the most is like, you need to have your baggage and get it in with the character, and that's the people we want to see. And rather than leaving like the stress and what you went through today and the fight that you had over the phone with your uncle, rather than leaving it outside of the audition room, bring it in.
Yeah, bring your day.
Bring it in within the character and make that. And I think it's like coming back, it's one of the most helpful things that I've ever been taught in many ways in life. But I think just the trying to become a white canvas, which is really interesting because I think is a very, very different thing that what you have to do in your modeling.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you navigate that dance? Like, how did you, because you started
Sorry,
doing
I
theater.
Just side-eyed you. I was like,
I was like,
I was
right.
like, what tense?
No, but you know what I mean? Like, how do you dance between that? Because one of the reasons why I feel like people kept on going on the directors don't want to hire models and the type of thing was because you're quite aware of how you're coming across in camera when you have been modeling. And I feel like the view on that was that was going to take away from you being present and that people are getting posy. But how do you navigate like that dance and letting that go because you're such a professional when you're in front of a camera?
It's interesting because I feel like I've always had like a deep passion and like love for acting. But I feel like modeling has come more naturally to me in a way.
Okay.
Like as in, like I remember the first time I did a shoot was like a friend of mine in high school.
How old were you?
I think I was like 18.
Okay.
And a friend of mine from high school was doing, we just graduated and she was doing this like course where you, like a styling course. And then she asked me to model. And I never really modeled before in that context, but just getting in front of the camera, like definitely the photographer told me a few things to do, but I kind of could just move my body.
Yeah.
I feel though with acting at this point in time, it's really about me working on myself as a person, to like open myself up as a vessel to be able to just like be like present and like free and like give myself permission to like try these things. So if anything, at times acting feels more scary than modeling, because with modeling I think it's kind of come to me more like instinctive,
Naturally.
yeah.
So the relationship to the camera, yeah. So did you feel like the relationship to the camera for you modeling was natural?
I think so. Like I feel like, but I also feel like ever since I was a kid, like I've always kind of like toyed with like different, like my aunt would always say that she'd come home and I'd just be talking to myself, you know, I'd just be like oh,
in the mirror,
like I don't know, like I'd just be like washing the dishes and be like, yeah, like having these full-blown conversations by myself. And then I feel like with modeling that, I don't know how to describe it, but I just think also the hair, the makeup, and then someone being able to show me the mood board compared to acting feels more vulnerable because
1,000%.
yeah, you're kind of like accessing personal, you know, things that have happened to you to give that character life. And if anything, recently I've kind of been like realized that in some ways you kind of have to like heal those things that you actually want to access, because if you haven't really, obviously like give and take, everyone's different, but
yeah,
I think sometimes it's hard to, that sometimes like you'll be reading a script and you'll be like, oh my god, I can so relate to that, that has happened to me and blah blah blah, and then you get into the space and then you find this blockage and it's like I can't access that thing because my body is like protecting me, and it's like no, like we can't, you know. So if anything, it feels scarier, and I'm still just giving myself like permission to, like,
you have no idea how much I relate to that. And I worked through one of those specifically maybe like 2 years and something ago, no, 2 years ago. So I went through like big breakup, big things, whatever. And I was stoked because I was like, this is gold because I can access this in 2 seconds. And I was using it like crazy. And people were making the joke whenever I was going through, they were like, the camera will love this. And I was like, yeah, sure. Every time I would see scenes that were any type of vibe like that, I'm like, this is gonna be the best thing ever. And it was for a bit. It was a beautiful trigger because it would take me 3 seconds in any conversation to just lose my shit. But then simultaneously, as I was using this like it's a game, I was trying to journal and trying to heal it and trying to whatever. So there, I got to a point where I had a scene on one of the ongoings, and I tried to stay outside, triggering myself, like looking at messages and whatever, which I've never done again. We'll go into that. I don't think that's a great way. I was doing that and whatever. Someone took too long. We got into the room with the person I was doing it with, and then I've only experienced this sensation a few times in my life when I've had to go through like really stressful moments of just zombie. Full zombied out of my body.
Disassociating.
My body was like, fuck you, no. Like, I'm not gonna let you trigger, like, you're actually, because I would get gastritis, I would get sick every time, but I wouldn't care because I would have a good take. And my body truly went like, fuck you. I'm not going there. I don't give a fuck about that anymore. And I was like, no, but we do. And my body was like, nope. And then I was like, okay, so that was shit. I couldn't go anywhere. I was just like this the whole time, fighting. And then I came out and I was like, okay, one bad take, one bad day. I had like 2 proper months when I couldn't cry on camera. And I haven't had that issue ever before. And it was not because I was getting triggered, but I'm able to cry on cue very fast. Blocked. Fully blocked. And then I came to Les and spoke about it, and I was like, I am really having this random thing where whenever I'm trying to get emotional on a zine, I'm fully going zombie. And it would not just be like breakup or anything emotional, I would just zombie out.
Yeah.
Like dissociate in a really weird way, and it freaked me out. And then he kind of like started to get me to be like, okay, maybe you need to work on your access differently, not triggering yourself and whatever. And I started researching that and everything, because I've ever since I've like, yes, I've had a lot of access, but I've always made myself sick. And like because your body doesn't really know that you're not going through it. So your body is like, okay, so I'm going through this right now and this is shit, and then I would have gastritis all night. And it's the type of thing where then I think it was kind of a thing of trust, where I had put it out so much that my body was like, you're actually hurting me, and I don't want you to do that anymore because you're making me sick, so I'm gonna dissociate. Like when people go through trauma, like, and I was doing that to myself, as if it's like a game, you know? Like just like, oh yeah, remember that, remember like this person dying, do you remember that? And I heard an interview, back to Permission, with Benedict Cumberbatch and Penelope Cruz. And she was telling him, he was doing a really hardcore role, and he had his family over in the middle of the countryside and whatever. Like, I think it was like a rape. It's like really, really hardcore character. And they were talking about the fact that when they were younger, out of insecurity, out of not believing in their talent, they felt like the only way they would get there when the camera would be rolling was to be fully depressed the whole week. And to be like really taking themselves to horrible places. They wouldn't see any friends, they wouldn't see anyone, they would be like recluding themselves in the room, doing all these crazy things because they would feel like otherwise they wouldn't be prepared and they wouldn't be at that spot when the camera was rolling. And then they were like, Penelope was like, I realized that there was a point where if I kept on doing that, I am fucking up my kid's life, because this is the mom they're having for like the whole weeks and whatever. And that it truly was just a lack of confidence in my ability and my speed to be able to get there fast and get out of it fast. And he was speaking about it because he was like, I have 1.5 drives back from set to my kids, and it's like a thing where I need to be fully out of it. And it's a thing that they were talking about. You get it with age. The fact that you kind of trust that you can get there, so you don't need to torture yourself emotionally, because we romanticize that as artists a lot.
Oh my god, 100%. I remember watching an interview with Michael B. Jordan after he did Black Panther, and because he was like the villain in it, and he was like, he said something about how he felt that in Hollywood they didn't talk enough about like actors and artists taking care of themselves after the role and stuff. Yeah, he was talking about after Black Panther that he felt like the industry didn't talk enough about actors being able to take care of themselves like after, you know, the show, and like being like having to go to these places. And I feel like 2 years ago I did this like course with this lady called Kim Farron.
Yeah.
And her whole thing is really about, it's not like we said, as artists, I think sometimes you feel like I have to be obvious. I feel like I'm like contradicting myself in ways, but
we always are.
Obviously 100%. It's like to feel that pain, you need to allow yourself, but in order to actually feed off of that pain, you kind of need to heal it, which is her whole philosophy.
1,000%.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what ended up happening afterwards, and what this is kind of like a theory, but I feel it's not like a theory. Like I've heard people speak about this, but I feel that the safer I have made my life and my environment and my relationships, and the more I've healed, the more my body trusts me to go there now really fast when I need to go there. But it's a weird thing, because whenever my body is feeling like, no, but that was actually happening to us for years. Like you're trying to play with something that is real, and it's a real danger. And when you've healed it, and I feel like your body recovers this trust with you, I truly think the body connection to go there, to allow yourself to like invest stuff, it needs to come from a place of trust.
Yeah.
That not only you're gonna bring me back fast, which was what Penelope Cruz was saying. She's like, I'm a better actress now because I can go places and I trust myself to bring myself back, and I'm not just gonna destroy myself the rest of the day. And like, she almost divorced after Pablo, because like, you know, she did that film with Javier Bardem with her husband, and she was speaking about how that was really tough in their relationship as well, because that's the thing, is like, artists are, I think it was Zane Lou saying this to Hosier in one of the interviews he did, but he was talking about a few artists that have like ended their lives in the whole drug thing and everything, and he was like, we love celebrating the art and we love celebrating things, and we're like, oh my god, yeah, big thank you. But whenever they're off and the album has been released and the movie's out and whatever, we're like, why are they doing drugs? Like, get your shit together, next art. And then it's like, he was speaking about that, he was like, you need to understand that in order for us to be able to enjoy what we're enjoying, these people are going places that can be really dark.
Yeah.
And you also need to be putting attention into like how to teach people to bring themselves back, how to teach, like, because we romanticize it a lot. And like, when you go deep into the stories of like Edith Piaf or Marilyn Monroe and everything, they didn't have any tools to get themselves out of there. No. And that's why like it went really badly afterwards, you know?
100%. I think it's interesting because even this week I've been resting a lot.
Yeah.
Because for the past month I've been very like back to back with things, and I feel like I kind of had moments this week where I was like feeling guilty for like resting and just kind of like giving myself a moment, and then it also makes you think that I feel like, because I'm so passionate about like what I do, you know, it's not just like something that like switches off, even if it's acting or modeling or so, that a lot of the times you can kind of like define yourself by, you know, your success or like your career and stuff. But at the end of the day, I feel like me now, what I really want to work on is just being able to like come back to self and be able to like know who the self is outside of those things, because obviously I still feel like the actor, the performer, the, you know, creative is a part of me, but that's not truly like who I am, you know. Although at times I think like people can kind of like see you and be like, oh, you do, like, I feel like sometimes the outside world can kind of define you as those things, and then you can start to just like only define yourself as that, compared to like being able to like come back to who I am. Like if you were to take all those things away, would you still be happy with yourself, if that makes sense?
How would you define self in that sense? When you're trying to strip all that down for you, and when you're trying to come back to you, what type of image, or what are you trying to get to in your head to remember who you are?
I probably would say like who I am, like with like my family and like my nearest and dearest, because I feel like those people have an appreciation for like the things that I do, and they know that it's important to me. And but they're not wanting to hang out with me just because I do.
But that still would mean that if your family and dearest were not there, Cynthia wouldn't exist, and that's not true, because you would still exist.
That's true, but I just mean more the values that I have in terms of like being able to like show up for people, being present, like the conversations that I have, if that makes sense. Like I think that's probably how I relate.
How would you define to self?
And probably as well when you're in bed by yourself, and like the voices that are in your head, I would say.
You would say they're self, the voices?
Yeah, I feel like they're part of self.
Interesting.
Voices. Yeah.
Because I feel like in order for me to find self, I need to retrain, like convince myself, not convince, but remind myself that the voices are not me. That's how I approach it, because those voices can be hectic.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because recently I've been thinking about like the voices and stuff, and I don't think, like definitely I have doubt, like I have so many doubts about things, but I feel like the voices in my head are more just like curious. They're just more like, oh, like this thing happened, I wonder what.
That's so sweet.
Like they're very just kind of like there's definitely, I think.
Is it like your inner Cynthia? Do you feel like is it a child self? Does it sound like a kid?
It doesn't sound like a kid, but I don't, like I feel like the voices in my head are never saying to me like, oh, you can't do that. Like it's more just like, I definitely have moments where I go, oh, I don't really know if I'll get that, but well, like we'll just see what happens. Like that's more like the voices in my head, you know?
That says a lot about the work you've done on yourself and everything, that you have that relationship to those voices. That's beautiful.
Definitely, like I definitely have moments where I'm like really stressed, but I think it's more of a feeling.
Don't you feel like you've collected any voices over your life of like outside judgment, or like teachers or parental figures? Like, don't you feel like,
definitely.
or you've let them go as you progress?
No, I definitely have like things that like people have said in the past that, but I think I can objectively be like, oh, I know why I'm feeling that way. Like, if that makes sense.
That's
like,
amazing. Yeah, it does.
But also, just because I can objectively be like, oh, I know why that's made me react that way, doesn't mean that I don't still feel that way, if that makes sense, you know?
No, but it does. But I'm just saying it's beautiful that you have that now, because for a lot of people, it takes a lot of work and a lot of meditation and a lot of detachment and journaling to understand, like, oh, that's why I had that. Again, it doesn't mean you don't feel certain stuff, but I feel like even to identify the voices, which I guess if it comes naturally, like, how were you raised when it comes to that?
Well, it's interesting because, so I grew up with my aunt, and my mum was in the States, and like, I feel like so recently my aunt and my uncle came to visit me in Sydney, and they met a few of my friends, and then after they left, like my friends were messaging me, and a lot of them said, oh, I can see why you are the way you are, or like from them, but it's interesting because when,
that's so sweet,
in comparison to them, I feel a lot more shy because they're very just like, super self-assured. Like they walk into any room and they're very just like, I'm here, like I'm present, like this is what I have to offer. Whereas like I definitely like have those doubts where like I'll walk into a room and I'll just be like, oh hey, I'm Cynthia, like this is what I can do. But I guess
but it can come out in different ways. Like people can be like really self-assured and everything and not be loud.
Yeah, and I think recently that's kind of something that I've been kind of like tossing up with, because I think that in society, power and like, you know, being self-assured is seen more in this like very like masculine, very like loud, like I'm here.
Flashing,
When I know that that's not what comes to me naturally. But at times, recently this came up in Les's class where I was like doing this scene and the person was very like kind of judgmental, but like just watching and, you know, poking. And Les was like to me, I feel like you need to get like he wasn't like change your voice, but he was like, I feel like you need to work on your voice because naturally I'm very like softly spoken. And then I was like, oh yeah, like I've heard that before. And I completely like took on his feedback, and I definitely want to be able to access something like that. And you look at someone like Viola Davis, you know, it's like a black woman, you kind of go, wow, like her voice as an instrument is like amazing. But I also would love for people to get out of that idea of just kind of like looking
of strength and power.
Strength as that one thing, you know?
But I think
I don't even know if I answered your question just then.
No, you
I
did.
may have just like gone off track. I'm not sure.
Those are the best of track. No, but like I want to come back to what you just said and the way you described how your uncle and aunt would show up, because you said they come in and they know what they're bringing into the table. And I think true self-confidence and true self-assurance, the reason why it doesn't have to be loud, and people have different personalities, so it can be loud, but I truly believe that it comes from the fact of arriving somewhere and being like, I think I can have value in your life right now. And it's a thing that takes time to develop, because people and society has attributed value to many different things, you know? So like, I feel like, for example, you know that you have this ability, we're going to talk about the podcast, but you have this ability to hold space for people. That can already be a lot of self-assurance, because you can enter a social situation knowing that people that come to speak to you are going to calm down. And I've seen that happen. Like in a sense of like, people have to be turned on and in this energy, and they come to you, and it's a thing where like, I can be here and I feel safe.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've noticed that, but like I run to you in social environments as well and everything, but I feel like there's a moment
that's really
where
weird.
No, but there's a moment, you know, when like energetically there's some people that you're like, I can be me there.
Yeah.
And it's a thing where I think a lot of self-assured people I know that are not loud come from the space of like, I trust myself to bring some value into your life in whatever way I do it, with whatever talents I have. And that's why I'm confident. It's not, I'm confident because I'm wearing the best outfit, or I'm confident because this is my job, or because this is how much money I have. I think like, so what you just said about like your uncle and aunt, I do feel like it's that thing about, we were speaking about this with Jazz, because have you met her mom?
Briefly, but I haven't like had like a full conversation, but I've met her mom.
Yeah. So Mary takes pace when she enters a room. She's like that. She will, she's not hiding or like apologizing for existing. And we were speaking about this with Jazz, because I was telling her that this is one of the things, like when I met her, I was like, I get this.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, no, completely. I feel like when I saw her, I was like, oh yeah.
It jumps out straight away. You're like, okay.
1,000%.
Yeah. But it's a thing that you're really lucky to have had, and that we're really lucky to have had, because I feel the same with my mom. But women haven't felt that way for a long time in society. Like, it's taken a lot of time for us to feel safe taking up space.
And that's still something that I'm 1,000% like working on, like every day, in terms of taking up space, because I think for me, taking up space looks different.
How does it look for you?
I feel like my natural instincts when I go into a room is to more like observe, you know, and like I feel like you've probably seen this, but like on TikTok there's this like interview, it's done in the 90s, like I'm not sure who the actual person is, but she goes, I'm not quiet, I just don't say anything if I don't have like the need to say anything, like I only speak if like I feel like I'm putting value to it. And even recently in like my personal life, I feel like I've had moments where people have kind of said to me that, oh, like I don't even know how to put it, but I just think that, like, I was talking to one of my best friends about this. I feel like being like a black woman, that sometimes there's ideas that are put onto you of like what strength looks like. Taking up space, I feel like
Viola Davis.
Yeah, I feel like growing up, I've kind of always struggled with that, because in some ways I think people have like predetermined ideas of what a strong black woman looks like, and I think a lot of the times that is to kind of like be loud and be like, I'm here, and I totally resonate with all those things, and in some ways I can like tap into that and say like I absolutely love Viola Davis, but naturally, like as in like my natural instincts, that's not really, maybe it's like I need to do more work to get to that space, but naturally that's not how I am. And so say someone like Taylor Russell, when she kind of came onto the scene, I kind of had a moment where I was like, oh my god, like a black woman or a woman of color that feels that I can kind of like relate more to, because like my natural sort of like instincts is more like someone who like observes, and I like my voice, this is just my voice, is a bit soft.
But that's the problem with representation, because if you have one stereotypical, I could never ever like feel like, oh, I relate so much to Sofia Vergara, because I hated that stereotype, even though I love her and I admire her so much. And it's the thing about the more Latinos showing up, and I guess like the more, but it's a percentage thing when you see it, because you're seeing more black women on screen and you're seeing more representation. So there's a variety of strengths, because there's a variety of humans, but
1,000%, and I hope in ways, you know, that can, like, I think just growing up in the Western world also just open people's views to not be like, for me to not have to feel like I need to fit a box, you know, in order to be like strong,
digestible,
also, or like digestible,
castable in the box of like
1,000%.
And I think that's where the conversation about us having the possibility now to like write and make our own work also starts becoming really important, because a lot of the times it comes about you need to redesign a box and put them in your their face.
That's true.
That's what
you been going with
Julio Torres has done.
Have you been writing?
Good. Yeah, I finished writing, so we're filming the short in July, I think.
Oh my god,
Jazz is directing it. Yeah.
Really?
I'll tell you more about it. But again, it was Julio Torres. So it became coming back to it. I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you everything.
Okay.
But Julio Torres did that, who's like he directed Problemista. Did you watch that?
Oh wait, I did.
Did you watch it?
Yeah.
When Cine Film Festival?
Last
No one has
year.
watched it. It makes me so happy.
Last year.
What did you think about it?
I loved it. So one of my like best friends was just like, "Hey, wanna go watch this movie? Is this the one where it's like the guy and like
Tilda Swinton? Tilda Swinton. Guy immigrating into the US?
Yeah,
you cannot confuse Problemista,
yeah. That was,
Okay, I'm so happy you watched it.
It was really good, and because like my friend was just like, I want to go watch this, and I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then at the end, both of us were like, wow, it was like really good. Like I got emotional at the end.
Okay.
Like the old man and the.
You're making me so happy.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because you honestly, every time I'm like, have you watched Problemista? People are like, what? Okay, so that film slap in the face in every way, because I have never felt more like there's so many artists that I've loved and admired and followed their work like a crazy person, but I hadn't really seen someone where everything he represents. So just to give you an idea, I came into Problemista, I had no idea what I was watching at all. It was one of the things I booked for the festival, and I just came in. And I came in, I was with someone watching it, and then 10 minutes into the film, I went like, okay, there's no way that this man didn't write this, and he hasn't lived it. And I pulled out my phone, and I looked him up, and I was like, okay, he directed and he wrote this. And it's like based on his life in 10 minutes, because I don't think I've ever seen a representation of immigration that I've related so hardcore, like so much with. In like all the little games, what he does with the clock, with the visa, all these things are so viscerally how I feel. He was able to kind of put into a screen what being inside my body has felt like as an immigrant. Wow. And I was like, and then I watched the film, and it's the type of thing where I had never seen an artist that I'm like, I've seen artists that I want to emulate their career, I really love what they do because of specific things, but with Julio Torres I felt like, oh, this is what I want to do. Because he, like the way he like would deliver, because he was speaking about really hardcore serious subjects, like the things he touched on, the mom trying to send money, what accumulating money in Latin America would mean in dollars, which is nothing, and for her would mean so much money, and she would do all these efforts to like send him some money, and it would be like $30, but he acted like he was a man. I cannot go into the subject. But that thing about Problemista was that he would edge you into like depression, and I was about to get so triggered, and then he would drop the best joke ever. And I think like for me that's one of the most well done deliveries of a subject like that, because it's like, you know, when you like are giving medicine to dogs and you have to like put like peanut butter or something, I feel like that's what he like does with his comedy, where he's gonna like it's still ridiculous. You can still like, you can be going to a visa appointment that you really stress about and that will determine the rest of your life. It could be a very dramatic moment, and you can just step on poop. Life happens like that, you know what I mean? It's not just dramatic. Like you can leave a fight with your partner and it can be raining, and then you can just trip and it's still funny. And I think like what was really interesting about Problemista is that I watched it with a friend that is Australian, has never immigrated, doesn't have that experience. And when we came out, I was like, how did you feel about it? Because I related to it so dramatically because it's my life, but I don't know how you felt about it. And he was like, he was genius because he put another character, which is Tilda, with something that she wanted with all her heart as well, with an objective that meant everything to her, that people who haven't immigrated could relate to as well, so that it could be followed by both groups simultaneously, and to be like, have you ever felt like you want to give your whole life to achieve this? Like she wanted to achieve the X and everything. And it's insane.
It was so ridiculous.
It was so ridiculous. Like the personification of Craigslist. So you remember Craigslist as a character?
Yeah.
Anyways, but coming back to that, then I went into a deep dive on his work and his stand-up. He manifested that so hardcore. He did a stand-up sketch in 2016 where he spoke about Tilda and how it would be his dream to work with her, and then he casted her in his movie like 8 years later.
In manifestation?
I do. In terms of, I love that. Whose podcast is this?
Me, I was like,
yeah.
do you believe it?
I I actually do, but not in the... I think manifestation has gotten a very woo-woo fame to it. And even though I do believe in the woo-woo in a different way, I think manifestation, and I've seen it so many times, comes more about... There's a lot of mechanisms in your brain, like reticular activation system, which is one of my favorite systems. Do you know reticular activation system? Another time for us to speak about reticular activation system. So there's a system in your brain. You know how like you're getting... Right now, there's so much stimuli in this room being thrown at you. But you're focusing on a specific amount of things, on my voice, on me, on Wes, because if you would be taking in all the information, you would have a panic attack at all times.
Yeah.
So your brain's always filtering information, right? There's a system where the most common example people do for reticular activation system is when you're thinking about buying a car. Have you ever had that where you like go into like a car dealership and you want to find, I don't know, you speak about this specific Toyota or whatever, and then you come out and you start seeing that car everywhere?
Oh, yeah.
Have you had that? That's reticular activation system. It's like basically programming the filter in your brain to be like, this is now important.
Yeah.
So we pay attention to this. The same amount of Toyotas, whatever, were in the street before. But now your brain thinks it's important information and you're seeing them everywhere and you're like, there's more cars right now.
Yeah.
So that's a system that we have developed with evolution so that our brain helps us understand what matters and what doesn't, which works wonders for great things, but also works really on our detriment for when, for example, you hear someone going on like, all men are liars.
Yeah.
All men are liars. You're programming your brain
to
take the cue on men that are lying and be like, yep, you see? There's more men that are liar, and then if you see men that are being honest and whatever, you're programming your system to ignore them more than the liars.
Yeah.
So that's just a system that exists in your brain for everything, for like clothes, for whatever. So I think reticular activation system plays a massive role in actual manifestation, because once you have like images in your room of something, you have you're listening to affirmations, or you're having a visualization. I do truly believe in visualizing. You're literally programming your filter to be primed to whenever you see something that aligns with that. So you hear a conversation in a coffee, you hear an interview on someone speaking about this, you hear that there's this course, that there's this camera that they're working on. Whatever it is that you're trying to manifest, I feel like you're actually programming your brain to be like, oh, get into that, that's an opportunity, that's a door. So I think there's a lot of physical ways in which manifestation is real. And then within the woo-woo energetic side of it, I think that you don't manifest what you want, I think you manifest what you think you deserve. And
Gosh, that's a good one.
Well, that's why I feel that's what I'm working on, because I do feel like I've seen that in my life repeatedly, and I see how things start coming up when I have, when it seems like it makes sense that they come up. And you're like, yep. And it's a bit about I have enough value in this situation to be able to take this opportunity. And you're giving, like, not like the whole, if I'm taking up this space, it's because I can make something good out of it. And I think within that manifestation, that's when we kind of go wrong, where we think we're gonna manifest something. If we're like, I want to manifest this amount of trips with my family, or I want to manifest these things, but I think if you're not working on, do you feel like you deserve this, then I don't feel like there's any point on trying to manifest it, because I think subconsciously you're not gonna put yourself in that spot. And I think energetically you're telling, and I do believe in that, in frequency, where like in a frequency thing where more than just attracting things, it's just like you are in a frequency where things make sense. But when you don't feel like you deserve situations, you truly get yourself out of them like that. and we don't realize, but we truly get ourselves out of like situations when the frequency is like, I don't deserve to be here.
Oh my gosh.
Do you believe in manifestation?
I do. Sorry, I just found all of that so interesting because I'm like, I agree with that. I think I'm also working on like feeling that internal, like I deserve to be here. But even like the word deserve, sometimes it's a bit like, what does that even mean? But just more just...
Do you feel entitled when you say the word deserve? Because deserve, I think it comes back to the what we were speaking about with your uncle and aunt, to like, are you of value in this situation?
Yeah.
Do you truly believe you're of value in this situation?
Well, that's what I'm definitely working on. Like I definitely know that I bring like something to the table, but that like, I think that sometimes in situations I can kind of give myself up,
Yeah.
you know, to like wanting like people around me to feel like good and like safe and whatnot.
What would you give up? What do you mean giving yourself up?
As in, I think, say for example, I'm in a situation and, or this once happened to me, that I saw someone that I kind of loosely knew but didn't really know, and there was like previous context to why I felt weird seeing this person. Me, Cynthia, is not someone who's like, oh my god, unless like I really know you like that, then I'm like, but if I don't know you like
the
that,
Australian one just like,
yeah, if I don't know you like that, what comes naturally to me is very like, oh hey, like
hello,
how are you, like just like that is what comes naturally. But because this person that I was interacting with had like a very loud energy, that then internally I was feeling like I needed to match that energy to be like seen and to be like, you know. And so then I started to be like, oh my god, hi, but that was actually coming from a place of anxiety. It wasn't coming from a place of truth. And then when I spoke to my therapist about it, she was like, it's because you gave yourself up, because that's not me. Like I'm not, you know, unless like I know you like that, that's not me, you know.
But was it to be heard by them, or was it to be not seem as like, I'm not excited to see you?
I don't know. I think it was just...
Do you feel like, do you often match people's energies?
I think when I was younger, like I would try to really match people's energies. So this is what I'm saying, that now...
You know that's really common in actors?
Matching people's energies? Yeah. Okay.
Like I heard someone, which can be really detrimental when you're not acting, because you're not supposed to give yourself up.
Yeah. It was so...
Why are you laughing? Have you heard that?
No, yeah, because it's like, I think someone told me, I don't know, I haven't looked at the study. Someone told me about this study where actors have like stronger mirror neurons than non-actors.
Yeah, I think it was the same.
Very strong mirror neurons. Yeah, they fire faster.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times I can kind of match people where they are, but I'm really trying to just work on being like, the person that I present, like who I am now, like this is, like it's also fine. Like just be comfortable with that. And if anything, I also think that then also gives you more of like actual like opinions. And
it
like,
lands so differently when someone is... like, you know, when you meet people and you're like, wow, you really are not wearing any masks. Like, there's some people that you meet that are so themselves, and everything they say or whatever in those situations lands so much harder. Because also, it's disrupting. It's like, no, I'm not going to match anything that's not mine here. I'm just here. And I'm just 100%. Chilling, and this is enough. That's how I feel about Kieran Culkin. Do you know him, the actor? He just won the Oscar for A Real Pain. Anyways.
Oh, wait.
He did Succession, yeah.
Oh, wait, is this the guy who's like really...
Macaulay Culkin.
The best, yeah.
Oh, him.
The love of my existence. But he's married.
But he literally goes up and every every time he does a speech,
Just manifest it.
you don't know. Like, I'm always a
I
bit
want
like,
your relationship to work, but if it doesn't,
I'm always like, oh yeah, this guy.
yeah, sorry. What
I'm
were you
always
saying?
like, every time he goes up and does a speech, I'm like, I don't know if I love you. Not that I hate you, but I guess he just feels like when you see him, he feels just so free.
So, okay, that's so interesting actually that you said that. So does that make you a bit uncomfortable?
It does, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because when I see it, it feels like he doesn't have to try.
I know.
Like, it just comes so natural.
I know.
And he's just like, oh yeah, I just got this thing. And so,
These Oscar.
thanks to my wife, I guess we're going to have a baby tonight. And you're like... And I'm out here being like, okay, how can I?
You're like, what do you mean you haven't practiced your Oscar speech in the shower?
Yeah. So I don't know what that says about me. That watching him makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yes,
makes me
I think-
feel uncomfortable.
I think it says that it's a very real thing that happens. I feel like I don't have it with him because I'm absolutely obsessed, and at the beginning I would feel jealous. There's something about it that's truly what I aim for in life. That
To have that level of freedom and like
of being himself, he's himself. I've seen him in interviews, he's himself. And it's a thing where, it's like
it's weird.
I'm just enough showing up here in this actors and actors in this Oscar thing. I'm still living in an apartment with one thing on the floor, and like I've seen him in all the interviews where he's same. It's not
he's
like now.
He's a person first before he is like
Yep.
a character.
Yeah, like, and it's an interesting thing because I feel like that's a more Australian and Canadian thing than other cultures. For me, coming from outside, I feel like Australians are the interactions in like coffee places and everything is human first. I know for you guys, you don't feel like that because I feel like a lot of Australians are like, no, we're all over the place and whatever.
I know. I just scrunched up my face. I was like,
we're not humans. I have really low, not low standards, I'm not gonna say that, but I was living in Paris. So like the way people interact a lot of the time is purely transactional. Like you go to a coffee shop, this is the coffee I want.
yeah.
This is my coffee, great, thank you, I paid. When I arrived to Australia, I felt that there was a thing where people would, whether it's fake or not, and people can judge this and criticize this, but it's a thing where like, hi, how are you? I acknowledge you're a human. You've had a day, how's your day been? We just watched the sunrise because I'm speaking about coffees in front of sunrise, whatever. And then, oh yeah, by the way, like I want an almond cap, please.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're two
It's a bit more
humans.
approachable.
You have this whatever job. This is a transaction that we're doing for coffee, but the first thing is that like, how you're a human, how are you today? And there's different levels of that in every country, but I do think that there's people who understood that, like Kieran, who is literally, because I've seen really old interviews, so it's not like a humble thing now that he's like at the level of, truly that dude was being like that when he was like, yeah, I'm not booking anything, I'm just in this random one studio and what, like, same freaking chillness.
Oh, I love
I don't
that.
even know if I'm gonna work as an actor. And it's a thing where I understand the feeling of making you uncomfortable. And I have this with people that are closer to me culturally, where like I heard Sofia Vergara on an interview. She did one of the actors and actors, like the round tables. No, it was not an actors and actors, it was the round table. Did you see it?
Where I haven't seen it, but where usually like all the women
Yeah.
and stuff. All them.
Yeah, it was all the women on that one that were on that season, on that award season. And they start speaking because I think Nicole Kidman had just made an accent for her movie and they were speaking about accents. And she just goes, oh yeah, like I cannot do, I have all the accent coach ever and I cannot have my accent improved. And she just starts being very vulnerable about how she admitted, like she's like, my accent is like this and I know I cannot change it. And I've tried and whatever. But chill. She's like, that's how I've made my career. I was pure anger watching that. Like I got triggered so much and I was alone and I was texting like the person I was like dating and I was like, I just got really pissed. You know when you're like, no, you have cortisol up your body? Because I was like, why the fuck are you saying that? Like, why would you say that on a round table? You're unprofessional, and you're like, and all these other women were speaking about the characters they wouldn't do, like that. They were speaking about their vulnerabilities. But when I saw her being chill with that vulnerability, I was like, no, but you don't get it. You're fucking this up for every other Latino, because now they're gonna be like, oh yeah, Latinas cannot change accents and whatever. And it is this thing where like her approaching, every time I feel like Latinos, I'm so much more cutthroat, and I don't want them to seem vulnerable. Whereas I see Kieran Culkin, and because he's separate from me, I'm like, that's cool. When it's a Latino or something like that, and I have that in LA, like, and I see them being human, I'm like, no, but you're pushing that stereotypes. Like, no one's gonna want to cast a Latino because they're gonna think we cannot do accents, and they're gonna think this thing. And I feel like I've had more of that. I've worked on it, but I've had more of those uncomfortable feelings about women that are really, again, like Kieran, just like, I can just be here, unmasked. And it's like part jealousy. And I think jealousy, it's a good, envy, I don't know who said this, but envy is a really good pointer at the things you want. Like, we really demonize envy, but I think it's a mechanism that if you just sit down and you're like, why was I envious of that?
That's come up for me in therapy before.
Envy?
Like jealousy of being like, it's not a bad thing. Like, acknowledge it. Like you said, it's more, it's an indicator of like what you want and stuff.
And do you feel like when you felt that, is it like closer to home?
What do you mean closer to home?
Like, is it people that you relate more? Have you felt a pattern when you felt envy, in which type of situations or people, or what triggers it?
I think it's more, in the past it's been more potentially in ways I'm like, oh, I could, like, if sometimes I feel like I'm kind of being like complacent, and then I see someone else like doing something, and I'm like fuck, I need to get my act together. Like, I can do more. Like, I can, like, in more.
It's always things that you know you can do more of.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
So it's never coming from a place where I'm like, oh, that person doesn't deserve it. It's not like that. It's more like, I'm like, fuck, like, they can do it, I can do it. Like, what have I been doing?
But that's why it's a great signal, because you're not jealous of, like, I don't know if you're a great chef, but I'm not jealous of an insane chef winning MasterChef or doing this crazy no, with food. No, because then she's like, I'm actually a chef.
Yeah. It has to be something.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Like, you're just like, wow, this person's amazing.
Yeah,
like what
I'm
the
able
fuck?
to be like, wow, go you, because.
And I look at Formula 1, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so.
And you hear like the insane hours that you do, but you're like separate to it. Oh, okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're separate, so you just admire it and you celebrate it. When it triggers some sort of line in your consciousness, I think it's a weird thing when you're like, you could do better. Because when you're doing your best, I've felt this truly. I want to get into your podcast because of that. But like, also with podcasting, where I've like, when I feel like I'm doing my best, I admire. Like, I literally look at stuff and I'm like, that's really cool.
Yeah. Like,
when
you do?
Like, I do, for example, like with podcasts, I wanted to start a podcast for a very long time before I did. Very, 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 very long time before I did. And during the last maybe year-ish, I was just very insecure about it. I was like, yeah, I want to do it. But then I was like, but why? Like, you need to have like figure out to have like, what do you have to, like, you know what I mean? Like, you need to have life figured out. And then I was like, do people that are like that you're listening to in podcasts have life figured out? And I'm like, no, but like, they have the equipment, you know, like, always excuses.
Oh my god, I can so relate.
And if I do the podcast, it cannot be in English, it needs to be in the 3 languages. So do I have 3 different platforms? Do I have 3 different podcasts? Don't do anything. And over again. During that last year and a half, every time I would see someone I admired launch a podcast,
you'd be like, what the fuck?
I would lose my shit with envy. In a weird way, where I would be like pissed. And then that was so much signaling, because I was like, then when I started and stuff, even though the quality, the reach, everything was different. I was like, I'm doing it. And I'm doing my best and whatever. And I feel like whenever you're trying, even acting wise and everything, if I have a thing where I'm like, ugh, it's because I haven't been working on it on the light. Like when I'm working on it, even if it doesn't even come to already me seeing all the results. It's about putting in the work. I feel like the envy changes. Like it's a weird thing internally when you're like, it's a really good messenger. I feel envy.
No, 100%.
Okay, so this is something that I really wanted to pick your brain on. How did the first idea to start a podcast, how was that born?
So for me, it's so funny. Do you feel like you consider yourself like a podcaster?
Now I do.
Now you do? Okay.
Now with Wes, I do. We're so bro.
Yeah.
I love.
No, but
But
now that we became a team, it's more. Yeah, I do.
I can so relate because like, okay, your question. So for me, the idea, I also am similar where I always wanted to do a podcast.
Yeah.
But I think for me, a lot of it was like burnout. Because at the end of like university, I had a blog and then I had like my Instagram. I didn't really have followers, but I would always like write articles and kind of had like
About what?
just kind of like self-essays and like my life and stuff.
Yeah.
And just whatever I was experiencing that time. And it did get like a little bit of traction, but but then I kind of got sick of like it being so focused on myself that I was kind of like, what do I like have to say that people are interested in?
Yeah.
So then I was like, this would be really great to have like a video format, or like a audio format, sorry.
Yeah.
That would relate to the articles and have it on my website. So
Oh.
yeah,
That's how it started. Okay.
so that was kind of the initial idea, and I had the blog, which had all these articles, and then I would have a different section, and you would have like the podcast. But it took me such a long time to just get it off the ground because I kept being like, who's going to listen to it? And also, it takes such a long time. Like, it really does. And
You don't realize before you start doing it how,
And I think that especially now, I'm like, I actually need help. Like, I can't do this all by myself, you know? Like, if anything, I love, like, being able to chat to people and, like, you know, record the episodes. But the actual, like, sitting there and, like, editing, for me,
You don't love it?
is not my strength. Like, I can do it, but my brain just does things. Like, I don't know, like, yeah, like it just takes me such a long time, and then you've got it's just hard, like trying to do everything on your own. But then also, obviously, like I haven't gotten to the point where I'm, you know, like making a profit from the like podcast. So obviously a lot of it's like your own resources that you're putting into it. So sometimes that can be a bit tricky, but I think for me, like this year though, I've been trying to be just like really consistent and like work on the branding, work on, you know, having video and things that
I love
can
your
use.
branding so much. Did you do it alone?
No, my friend did that for
Okay.
me. Because you need help.
They killed it, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most beautiful things. Who was doing that? I'm gonna get Jazz. Jazz just started working with her flatmate. I don't know why I went into this tangent, but there's been a lot of situations around me, even at the place I'm working with, and my friend who just came into the job and started doing the branding. And there's a lot of things where I'm like, one of our biggest resources, truly, especially I'm saying we as you and I, because I know your circumstance in that sense, is the people around us and the creatives around us.
Definitely.
And we take that so much for granted. In a sense of like, even because I just helped my friend on her short and whatever, and it's a thing where like the way she organized her short and a lot of the things were, who do I know that's good at this and I would love to do this, and then kind of like even organize parts of the script around it, which I've heard people do, and I hadn't had that approach because I'm like doing this like at the beginning I was like doing this like the script I was like trying to like change it so many times because I was like, babe, this is a $2 million. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, no, but I want this set, and I want this. And I'm just like, and it took me so much patience, and actually, really, truly creativity, because my ego was like, well, no, then this is what it has to be in order to be good. In order for it to be good, because I wanted to be surrealism, and I base myself a lot on Julio Torres, which is like fucking just made up sets every time, which is so expensive.
Well, get out your hammer.
Yeah.
Get the set going.
Literally, get out all my friends. But then within that, I think I was listening to The Creative Act. Did you read that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you're gonna freaking adore that book. It's Rick Rubin.
Okay.
And he was speaking about the wealth that comes from limitations. And how even now that some of his artists, he's a massive producer, and some of the artists he works with, they're now at a stage of their career where like they don't really have any limitations, whether it is budget or anything. They can really make anything happen. And it's the thing where he has to, for part of the incubation process of a project, he loves to play around with cutting amount of things they can do, amount of beats they can use, amount of people they can, amount of money, because he says there's something crazy about creativity that is born from limitations. And I think it's really easy for us to not do something because we're like,
that's a good one.
Yeah, it blew my mind, Rick Rubin, because then I saw my friend doing that with her show and everything, and it's like, and Rick Rubin even said that when it comes to writing, is like, who do you know around you, like what type of stuff. And just when she read the script and we started talking about it, straight away goes like, okay, no, we can do the small set because I have these people in Melbourne that do these small sets and we can film it, and then you just rewrite it. And the amount of creativity that has come out from the fact that I'm like, how are we gonna do this short with like little to no budget?
Oh my god, I'm so excited.
And so many, I'll tell you everything about it. But so many people, like, just at the same time as listening to this, I heard so many artists speak about limitations and putting themselves in a little cage for a second to be like, how can I make this work? And it makes you be more creative sometimes than having all of the possibilities, because sometimes when you can do everything, you don't do anything.
Yeah.
You know what and it's this thing about, we have this possibility right now of having so many artists that around you that want to create art and they want to be part of your projects. And it's that thing that I had with Mads when I'm like, whatever you are doing, I'm in. And they're moving the camera, like, I'm in. And it's a thing where like, that's actually, I feel like, the wealth we need to be focusing on in terms of like, who's aligned with my vision and would want to jump on this. And a lot of people are in the way you want to jump on people's like projects because you're aligned with what they're doing and you think you can have, and because you're getting to create. We're so in the old mindset of someone needs to give you permission to create, and you need to be casted, and you need to be given this.
I can relate to that. Actually, this is so off topic, but today I was on Instagram and I have this friend called Brendan.
Yeah.
I don't know his last name.
Shame, Brenda.
I don't know anyone's last name.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no,
will be added.
His handle is It's by Brendan. And he literally, like, he's, for years, like, I've known him now for maybe, like, 3 years.
I just imagine you showing up to parties and go like, hi, it's by Brendan.
Well, when I see him, I just go, Brendan, but I don't know his last name, you know?
Yeah.
But for years, he's been doing these, like kind of, like, first started off doing makeup, but his thing is, like, makeup.
Yeah.
But literally all his, like, videos look so high production. For me, when I've been producing, like, some Instagram content, I've been getting friends to help me. But he is, like, a one-man show. And he just posted this video that I, like, reposted on my story. And it was, like, this ad for, like, YSL and, like, this perfume. And watching it, I was literally blown away. I was like, because I know that he does it all
by himself.
Like, by himself. And it's like, I felt like today I was like just going on because I've also been trying to like limit how much time I'm on Instagram and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And so kind of when I'm on it, it feels more intentional when I see people's stuff. That I was like feeling so inspired and being
that.
like, holy shit, like this is friend here that literally can do whatever, and he's now helping other friends film things because
That's amazing.
he has the equipment, the vision, like editing, like it's insane. Like I just feel like, and I like texted a friend today and I was like, did you see like Brendan's video? Like like I'm like, he needs to be getting more flowers because
That's
like,
beautiful.
okay, after this you go watch it because it's crazy.
No, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
And whoever's watching this, you should go watch Brendan's video.
Go watch all the content of It's by Brendan.
But it's truly insane how seeing things like that can be such an expansive moment in your brain when you're like,
It really was.
whoa, what the fuck is possible? And also, wow, my excuses are bullshit.
Yeah.
Because you see this content, you're like, oh my god, that's like a 15 people team.
I think that I can be It's by Brendan, but it inspires
In
me
your
to
way.
just like, okay, let me do something.
In your way, yeah. There's this dude, I haven't shut up about this podcast, and I won't, but there's a podcast that Stephen Bartlett did, so Diary of a CEO. He interviewed Daniel Presley.
Oh no, I don't know that.
He's like how would you define Daniel Presley? I don't want to say a finance dude, that's the worst way to say it.
Wealth management.
He did
No.
he's the one who wrote A Key Person of Influence. So he works a lot about the title of the podcast is super clickbaity. It's like how to make $1,000K in whatever investments. But the actual podcast is one of the best 1 hour and a half I've ever spent in my whole life. And what he was talking about, and then the way he started his career and stuff, because he's like he coaches entrepreneurs and does this thing where people are building their businesses, and he just moves from business to business and grows businesses like that. And he was just talking about how the mindset shift that it gets people to have, and that like he pushes the most on is you're one conversation away from any resource you need. You just need to be creative. And he was speaking about that when he started doing his videos. He was like, I had no money, I had no anything. I emailed every single company of cameras and everything with not following anything. Can you support us, whatever? One of them, a Canon ended up sending him like all the stuff that were returned and like lending him that for like a month. And with that, he did something. And it's the thing about truly you are one conversation away from any resource. And you need to understand that right now with social media and with emails, it's a mindset shift when we love to hide ourselves behind the excuse of like, oh, that needs a massive budget, or that needs a person to cast it.
Oh my god,
whatever.
I can so relate to that. And it's funny because I was literally thinking about like this afternoon, and I went on Instagram and I saw It's by Brendan.
Yeah. Oh my god, are you getting paid? Are you getting a percentage every time you say it? There's a transfer being made.
Like my mind was actually blown away.
Yeah.
Like I was like anyway. And then in the same breath, another friend had sent me she was like, hey, like I did like a poetry thing in collaboration with this musician. And then I opened it up and I was listening to it and I was just like, oh yeah. And I messaged her being like, yeah, I'll check it out. Started listening to it and I was like, oh, like, I was like, because this whole week I've been sleeping because I needed to rest.
Which is great, and you should not be feeling guilty about it.
No, I don't.
What am I doing?
No, I do not, because
guys.
Homegirl needed it. I needed a reset. But I was like walking and I was like, holy shit, Cynthia, like, because I've also been like thinking and wanting to like write even like scenes or so and publish that on socials, or do it in a more of like a narrative way, or like do like a short or something, but I've had, you know, moments where I've been like, oh, but I've never done that. Like, can I write anything? So anyways, I just had that.
And the thing with, freaking thing with writing as well. Writing is a wild trip, I think, because I have a lot of writers around me and a lot of my friends. And I have written a lot of like my own like random stuff, journals and everything, not scripts.
Exactly.
And
which is very different.
Which is very different, but as cheesy as this sounds, because I heard it a lot, and I truly, truly feel like people keep on repeating this because it's true, but it sounds so easy. You need to get started. That's the only way you do it. Because there's a weird thing that unblocks, and it's like about sitting down and not having any idea what to do over and over and over again. And then there's a point where I think it's like acting in the way that you need to have the discipline to become a vessel. And to become a vessel means you still need to be learning about structure and still educate yourself the way you would train your voice and the way you would train stuff like an instrument. But I do think there's a moment where there's a weird flow of shit that comes out. And my mom cannot hear me talking about writing this short once more because she's fed. Like she's super supportive, but I haven't shut up because it's been a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
In a sense of like I tried in Europe and I was writing something else and it was around the subject, nothing was landing. I knew I wanted to write on immigration, nothing was really landing, whatever. I had to sit down with so many shit ideas and explore them over and over and over again up until something arrived. Within like 30 minutes, I knew exactly what it was going to look like. I was like, no, that's it. And I actually ended up using some parts of the shit idea from Europe that was never going to get developed, that shit idea. But you really have to go through like a lot of sit downs of frustration and like, I don't have any imagination. I'm not a good, I don't know what I'm doing.
Sorry to say it.
No, but like that's I feel like it's important to speak because that's how that voice sounds like for me and stuff that I'm not good at. Good at. Of course, I'm a beginner, so you're not. We're speaking about that in the podcast with Wes about accepting that you're a beginner is such a powerful place to be. Because you can show up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can show up to like my friends who've written stuff and go like, hi, can you read this? And just smash me. And they did.
Yeah. Like just get feedback from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, love.
Like, and then it's a thing where there's so much that comes, because even, acting wise, I'm much more confident. Because I've been doing it for years and I'm confident in like the way I want to do it and what I feel and everything. Writing, like, where do you want my confidence to come from? God, it would actually be crazy.
Yeah, that's 1,000% me as well. Like, where I've always been on the other side of like receiving the script and, you know, dissecting like the scene and the story and being like, oh, okay, what is this person, compared to actually being the person to like create it. Yeah,
which is actually so interesting in terms of what I was surprised when I'm telling you it was a spiritual experience was that, yes, I did like a masterclass on writing and I've like tried to educate myself a little bit, but I've never had like professional education on screenwriting as I did with drama. And that's, again, my imposter syndrome. It's like, what do you know? My answer writer, she's really harsh with her feedback. And so all these things to tell you that I didn't realize, because my brain hadn't, you know, when you watch something, when you hear conversations, I watched a lot of films. So there's somewhere in my brain, like a little drawer where shit is getting stored, that I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna use this, whatever. I've never had an experience like that where there's so many references that came out only when I needed them. I didn't remember that I remembered that scene. I was writing that and I would have like, ooh, okay, I don't know how I want her to enter scene. I think I want her to enter like, what was that film that I watched? And I would have the reference in my head. And then I would watch it and be like, oh, there's shit up there that I can use that I didn't know I had access, and I didn't even remember I remember that scene or that film, but the scene was in my head of what I wanted. And I think we underestimate how, as someone receiving scripts, you already know what you like and what you don't, and as someone watching films,
like trusting that you already know.
There's information there that I don't feel we can access unless we need to.
Yeah.
And and it's annoying because you cannot have the confidence that it's there until you're accessing. Because I'm pretty sure that if we were having a random conversation or whatever, I'm not sure I would have remembered that film.
Yeah.
It needed. My brain was like, it's like learning language. It's like sometimes your brain doesn't want to send energy to neuronal pathways that are not being used because it's a loss of energy.
Yeah.
But if I put you in the middle of a country where you don't speak the language, you're going to remember it.
Fuck.
I think with writing, there's a part of it that goes like that. There's a part of it can feel mystical, it can feel whatever, but there's a part of it that unblocks shit. I honestly got references, like I knew exactly what scene I wanted. I knew the entry of the car, and this was like 4 years ago, and I don't remember the name of someone I met 3 days ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think
I'm so excited for you.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
But that's the thing, it's just like, and then I have my friends who've written and done a lot of shorts, and I went to them. And everyone's with the same freaking thing of like, just do it.
Just do it, yeah.
You'll know how to do it when you do it.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, okay, whatever. Everyone says the same. I want the magical thing, but...
Oh, wow, that's so exciting. Are you going to go to Melbourne too?
I think I'm only going to do we're figuring that out. Because my actors are here, and I'm still figuring out part of it. Yeah. Everyone's not said yet.
Yeah.
But the little and big world. I want to play a lot in the surrealism and like the problemista vibe.
Oh my god, I'm excited. And it's funny because I had Yasmin also on my podcast.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if I included this. I probably did, but I said to her, I want to see you like directing more because I feel like she has such an eye, and Yasmin as a person just has like this like energy, like with the
Jasmine
things.
is an entity.
Yeah, the things that she says, the way that she like listens to people, the way that she like comes as herself and like affirms things. It's like, yeah. So like you two together, I'm like, oh
no, but which is why I'm telling you that our biggest resources are the people around us.
Oh my god, 1,000%.
And it's the thing where like my inner child, and I've told her that 50,000 times, but working on this script with her has been, because we've been doing all our like film festivals together, and like we've been watching films and like having all these 3-hour discussions.
Natalia here literally has like a list of like, she's like, are you going to the Sydney Film Festival? And I was like, yeah, I think so, maybe. And then she's like, this is the ones that I'm going. And it's like, this day, that day, that day. She's like, I think I'm going to get the 10 pass one. And I was like, oh, okay. I haven't even looked at the website yet.
Well, we literally need to wrap now because we need to go to the Sydney Film Festival.
Okay, yeah, I know. What time? Okay,
let's...
Okay. We'll wrap. Last thing, I promise. Still going on the podcast. What do you get what do you get out of podcast? Why do you think that's a medium that interests you and that you see value in?
I think for me it's community. I think.
Okay.
I feel like when I was in high school, like I had these like certain rooms where I could kind of express myself or feel seen or kind of like have other people let themselves be seen to me.
Yeah.
And then when I was in university, I like went on student exchange to Milan, and in that like 6-7 months of being there, meeting people from all over the world, constantly having like really interesting conversations, I was like, wow, I wish other people could like hear what we're talking about. And I think that I feel, I don't know what the word is.
So when you say community, you mean people being able to experience the community that you are experiencing in real life? More than the community you do with other people that listen to the same podcast as you do?
I would say probably community in the sense of like people being able to see themselves reflected in other people's stories or like other people's experiences. And so having even me doing the solo episodes and being like, hey, I've been thinking about this, and I'm quite similar where sometimes I'm like, fuck, like I literally don't have all the answers. Actually, not even all the answers.
Sometimes I don't have all the answers. Happens very rarely.
I do not have the answers, and for the most part, I'm like figuring out, you know, as I go along. So I also felt a bit like, also still feel intimidated in that way, because sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I'm like saying things with conviction because I literally don't know. But I'm like, if someone can watch this and feel less alone, then that makes me feel happy.
Which is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing that. I feel like that's what your podcast's at. And it's just so aligned with you as a human and the way you show up in people's life and everything.
Thank you.
I feel like, no, I really mean it. Like, it's the type of thing where, like, yes, you are making people feel less alone. And the fact that you do it in a podcast is like you get to share that feeling that we get to have when we interact with you. That is limited to the people that get to be around you. So it's beautiful that you're like going through all the effort of editing and doing everything that you do for the podcast, so that people that don't have the luck I have or Jazz has can still experience that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That's so kind.
And thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you would like to say about what we talk? Anything that I cut you, because I feel like I cut you on 15 lines of that.
No, not at all. This has been great.
Bye, guys. Yeah. That was the best. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much for being here.
I feel like that just flowed.